I think it can be spelled out in this way, that there was an elegance about his play. He was the great purist, the great specialist, and he had perfection to Gaelic football.
I have no doubt that history will judge Mick O'Connell as the classical exponent of the pinpointed kick and the high fielding.
He was a very easy type of person to play with once you understood what he was looking for.
I never saw anything like him, and I don't think I'll ever see it again.
There's a lot of talk nowadays about bringing in young players, this, that, and getting rid of the older players. The question I'd like to ask a lot of people and selectors and those is, when does youth end?
Well, I didn't think he was finished last year, Anna, but that was the last I saw of him. He trained for the Munster final last year against Cork, and as you know, we were well beaten in that game in Killarney. But I thought we were a little unfair to him last year. We brought him on in the second half against the wind, and if he had been played for the full hour, I think he'd have contributed a lot to that game.
And Mick O'Connell there, getting a tap on the back from the man he played against so often at midfield, Dennis Long.
Was this to be his last appearance for the Kingdom, for whom he had performed with regal splendour for over 15 years? Now he tells his story.
First of all, let me tell you a little about my childhood. People who have never visited Valentia might be forgiven for thinking it is an island similar to others around the coast of Ireland, such as Cape Clear, Arran or Tory. Far from this, there is nothing remote about the place. If you could imagine it being given a strong push, it would fit nicely up against the adjacent mainland of South Kerry. It has all the ruggedness and grandeur of the west coast, with many spectacular beauties. What really put Valentia on the map was the arrival of the Western Union Telegraph Company to lay its transatlantic cables about 1860. The resultant employment was a great boost to the economy of the island. That briefly describes the place I was nearly not born in on the 4th of January 1937. My father, a fisherman and ship's pilot, had only a few years earlier migrated from smaller Bigness Island nearby. Typical of many families living on Valentia, our means of livelihood was fishing, supplemented by the produce of the small farm we lived on. When I arrived on the scene, there were already 3 girls and a boy. 2 boys and 2 girls followed later. So, being placed in the middle of the family, I was perhaps destined for the midfield position. My boyhood memories, apart from football, centre mainly around boats. In the summer, we towed for mackerel and pollock. In winter, we would go poling for scallop, a shellfish which could be seen on the more shallow parts of the harbour on a clear, calm day. There was no football history in my own family, except perhaps one first cousin, John Curran. My father, however, took a keen interest in the game and never failed to buy us a new football.
I don't know, they all marked him, and he, young fella, but he was very nice at it. He started with the minors there, and he jumped from the minors to the seniors in 2 ticks, and he held his place all along there in the games.
At the national school, I was very lucky to be with a good number of equally enthusiastic students, or schoolmates, and that there was playing space available. All of us who played together at the national school were colleagues afterwards on the Young Islanders team.
I taught Mick O'Connell here during the latter years of his elementary school life, you see. And at that time, I found him to be extremely careful, ambitious, all the time anxious to give up his very best. He was exceptionally good at mathematics. Well, he was equally good at most other subjects, but especially his special bent was mathematics. He was in that yard there, you see, there he learned his football. And he wanted to be best there as well as to be best inside.
Our home was a 2-storey house situated at the top of a 6-acre field with a natural practice ground. With my brother John, the Lynches, John Shanahan and other nearby neighbours, we did not leave much grass for the cows and pass to that field. The marks left by the ball on the gable ends of the house also bore testimony to our many activities. Bridging the gap between the national school days and 1955, there was a 5-year spell commuting to Carsey Christian Brothers Secondary School. And on its staff, the mathematics teacher, Mr. Hurley, was of national reputation.
I found him a very zealous student. I'd say now that if you take him now by the present-day standards, he would be an A in maths, and possibly an A in applied maths. Afterwards, when he went to the university, he got a first-class honours in his first year's engineering, which was a tremendous accomplishment, seeing that we had no science lab here, and that he had no physics or chemistry done before going in.
You have particular memories as well of him playing football in Carsey.
Oh, I have, yes, definitely. As a matter of fact, I'm one of those people who, when Mick was a young fellow, who really thought that he'd never make a footballer. I suppose I'll be condemned for saying this, but he was playing with the Dunlow Cup team. We were playing in Killarney, and he was a young lad playing with the seniors. Perhaps he was too young for the match at the time, but at all events, the trainer of the team was dissatisfied with his play, completely dissatisfied, and put him into goal, and he was no goalie. The following year, there was some improvement to my mind, but then when he was in leaving certificate, I remember the South Kerry, or the County Board Championship was on, and Mick O'Connell was selected at midfield. And I was one of those who was saying, well, I don't know how Mick O'Connell got to be at midfield, but I went up to Tralee, and I was absolutely amazed. I stood there with my mouth open. I saw not alone a footballer, but I almost thought a ballerina in the ballet. The way he was able to jump up in the air, catch that ball, field it, and then he knew where to send the ball.
At this stage, I was taking football very seriously, and everything else took second place. Then, too, I gave up studying engineering at University College Cork and got employment with the Telegraph Company on the island. The £3 per week and the freedom to train and play football was enough for me. 56 to 59 was not what you call the most successful period in my time with the Kerry team anyway. 56 beaten by Cork in a replay in the Munster final. In 1957 beaten in the first round by Waterford. And then 1958 won the Munster Championship but beaten in the semi-final against Derry. So, but still we had got through to the Croke Park Championship for the first time, and I think that was the stepping stone to 1959.
Han gach 2 mile an cliffe, úsle na tíre is stehegus na mílte foca I mor. Gailes túske dinsa ach tá tací hir ar a láidir. Kiri Ginsi.
Here is the Gaelin newsreel of that 1959 All-Ireland football final. The previous winter, Mick O'Connell was determined to change from being an average footballer to being a top-class footballer. He trained intensively by walking, running, jumping, and it paid off. His regime of rigorous training, which he began in 1958, he has continued up to the present day. In 1959, Kerry won the National League for the first time in many years. In the Championship, no one was able to stand in their way. They beat Tipperary easily. They beat Cork in the Munster final. Then in the semi-final, Kerry had to face the combination football of a first-class Dublin team and an attendance of 70,000 people. That semi-final of 1959 has gone down in history as a classic football match, and people who saw it said O'Connell was at the top of his form. Now they face the final and a first-class Galway team. Galway had already defeated Down in the other semi-final. Mick has very few pleasant memories of that game. He says himself that he was overtrained, and when he twisted his knee in the first quarter, he was virtually out of the game, rarely gaining possession of the ball. However, it was to him, as the 22-year-old captain of the Kerry team, it fell the honour to receive the Sam Maguire Cup for the Kingdom for the first time since 1955.
Hero Joe Frank Ivers. Micheál Lade. Ach Faril. Búlin pursil y tresno nach Eresige, agus sin Coolin. Jo young Ruharinil, Coolin Gahale. Coolbor in the Galiva Sawwalls, a Haranlino, Cool Gihiri. Stockwell a Ruppery Hockey Hiri of Tiffany Share and Bodish and Oil. Kigar a Galia Buchan to Lord Portke, either a Calluan's Gafo Telegus and Thomas Lawn on the Guinea. And Shade Chico Gary McMahon, Bullen on Powagus a staff. And Trio Cool the Hiri, with all Law Log on Neo Hoard Game. Doran and Dr. Stuart and Column, Bihova Comil, Captain Hiri.
That evening, he left behind the celebrations and went back to Valentia Island, crossing as usual in his small rowing boat.
In time he heard the special thunder of the island shore. He hauled the boat in, sheltered near a rock, and smiled to hear the sea's defeated roar. Breathing as though the air were infinitely sweet, he watched the mainland where the hard wind struck. The island clay felt good beneath his feet.
Here he knew he was back among friends and could renew his strict training schedule.
It was the attitude of a lot of players that time that to be seen training was kind of a sin, that you should be able to play football without training. I think that was the attitude of a lot of players that time, which is really foolish.
It was Sunday, the 25th of September 1960, and for the first time in the history of the GAA, a very strong team from the 6 counties down faced the Kingdom of Kerry. It was only Mick O'Connell's second All-Ireland, and he didn't think they would have much trouble defeating a team which were largely unknown to Kerry. But he was in for a rude awakening. There was real skillful, dashing football by the down forwards, Paddy Doherty, Tony Haddon and Brian Morgan, playing havoc with the Kerry men Sean Murphy, Tim Lyons and Jerome O'Shea. But despite the speed and the extraordinary combination-type football played by the down men, the teams were quite close on the halfway mark. In the second half, Kerry even began to catch up, levelling the scores. Then came the break that Down were waiting for. Kevin Musson kicked a clever sideline kick. It was caught by Jim McCartan. He sent a lobbing ball into the goal mouth. It fell out of Johnny Cullity's hands into the back of the net. In the following year, Down faced Offaly. That game started in a welter of excitement, as we'll hear now with commentator Micheál O'Hare.
You'll enjoy the game. The band has left the field. Mr. Hugh O'Byrne, the president of the Gaelic Athletic Association, about to throw the ball in. Referee checking his watch. There's the whistle, there's the throw in, and the All-Ireland final is on. And James McCartan of Down is first to break away. He's going upfield with it, but his way is blocked there. Blocked there by Sean Brereton of Offaly. Sean is forced over the line on the far side, and there's a line ball for Down. 55 yards out from the Offaly goal on the far side of the field. A short one by Jarlath Carey, up along the far wing to Tony Haddon. Tony Haddon 40 yards out now from the Offaly goal, sends the ball across in towards the centre, and coming out with his cap there, well down over his eyes, is Mick Brady. The ball goes on loose there to Breen Morgan. Breen Morgan gets it 35 yards out, a curling shot in towards the goal mouth. It's fielded there, and it's sent in high and to the right, and yes it is, it's gone over the bar for the first score of the game. Paddy Doherty. The first score of the game, Paddy Doherty took one from this side. It had a curl on it, and one had to wait until the umpires gave their decision as to whether it was in or not. It was, and so after 45 seconds of play, Down lead 1 point to no score. A lot of these Offaly men donning peak caps to keep the sun out of their eyes here as Greg Hughes takes the kick out into the centre of the field. Held there by one of the cap-wearing Offaly men, Mick Brady, up to the far side. Ball held over there now by Patsy O'Hagan, and Patsy for Down sends a long ball downfield. And it is held by Breen Morgan, 40 yards out. Breen, a low ball in towards the goal mouth, and racing across is Tony Haddon. He's shouldered off the ball, and coming out for it now is Willie Nolan. Willie Nolan, the goalkeeper, his kick is blocked down. The ball's gone out over the end line, and it's wide. Down doing the attacking up to now.